Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talks series brought to you by AKFI, the Actionable Knowledge Foundation Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry association committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. Actionable ESG Talks series bring together great minds to discuss the current state and future of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. And today we'll also focus on AI. I'm delighted to be here with our guest, Analia Mendez. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce her. She's the founder of Signature Careers LLC, with over 23 years of expertise in career and workforce development. Through her coaching and consultancy work, she has profoundly touched the lives of thousands, designing expansive initiatives and sustainable educational programs for organizations like the University of California, San Diego, and Savannah College of Art and Design. Welcome, Analia.
Thank you, Manuel. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited to talk about our topic today.
Oh, yes. And uh, we have a long list of topics we'd like to discuss with you. And most topics will focus on sustainability and stakeholders, given your background. And the first one, and this is how I met you first, was uh, the strengths-based discovery by Gallup. And I'm sure some people in the audience are familiar with it, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows what's the strengths-based discovery.
Absolutely. So, strength-based work is really focusing on people's best talents and then nurturing those talents as they grow to become strengths. And of course, the original assessment that was created and is existing now is created by Gallup, and it is a Clifton Strengths Assessment. So there's an actual tool that you can take to assess what your greatest strengths and talents are. There are two different types of assessments you can take. You can take your first top five, which I recommend for everyone to take. And then you can also take your full, what we call 34. And we call it 34 because there are 34 strengths that Dr. Don Clifton, really came up with after much research and found that these 34 strengths were the ones that were the most common across the board through different industries that really predicted success of an individual and their top strengths. And so he did categorize them into the 34 strengths. And then you have the four domains, and the domains within each domain, you're able to categorize also your talents and strengths. But I highly recommend to dig in deeper into the actual assessment that you take it. But basically, with strength-based work and talents, we want to make sure that we're touching upon our greatest inner, innate, sometimes born with talents. And so it's a little bit like, I describe it a little bit like if someone has, and I'll talk about the kind of natural artistic people, right? That are born with certain talents, like singing, for example. It's almost like if I said, Manuel, you sing beautifully, but I don't want you to sing ever again. And so we say, okay, that doesn't feel good. I love singing. I love singing in the shower. I love, singing down the hall with my colleagues. And so it's very difficult for someone that has those natural abilities to just, close them and shut them off because they're part of who you are. And so that's how you and I connected. You're right, on LinkedIn. You saw that I was a strength-based coach by Gallup, certified by Gallup. And we connected on that particular piece. And then we started talking about our strengths also. And so I'm a wooer. I love winning others over. That's what it stands for, right? And you had shared one of your greatest strengths, right? What was the strength that you shared?
Actually, the same. Uh, that's probably what initiated the connection. But also, when I took the five strains test, I was impressed by the fact that it recommends, or the methodology recommends that you uh, act on your strengths in whatever role you are. Once you know your strengths, and actually I put them on my resume because it's a great topic of discussion during an interview. Beside, what do you know about this technology or that equipment?
Right.
Uh, I found it really very eye-opening for me because it's coming from, okay, some of the strengths are natural. Ooh, it's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Once I found it, I noticed, for instance, that I travel a lot on airplanes. I can start with this discussion, sometimes for an overseas trip with a person next to me. And I
Right.
didn't know I have that strength. So,
Right. And normally we don't think about them as, like a skill set or a strength. I think traditionally, what really got me with strengths is that when I was at UC San Diego, I was working with students that were brilliant and they would come in, whether they were transfer students or they were first year students, they would come in, they would sit at our career center, and I would ask them a very simple question. What do you think you might want to do, and what do you think are your strengths, your greatest strengths? And a lot of them actually could not answer that question. And so I thought to myself, this is not possible. How is this happening? These students, it takes so much work before they even get there to even get accepted, and they couldn't answer this question. So that's when I launched a really large initiative across the campus to certify key stakeholders so that they can begin to impact their student population that they were working with within their department through strength-based initiatives. So everything began to become infused with strengths, because it's true, as sometimes as high achievers, we may think that they're everybody has these strengths, right? Going back to this person who sings, everyone knows how to sing, but it's not true. We have very unique talents and strengths that will propel us very quickly forward and to achieve our goals if we understand that we have these strengths, right? It's like acknowledging them. Like you said, I didn't know I had the strength of woo, and I can travel the world and I can make friends with the person next to me. And probably at the grocery store, I always laugh at that because I will strike up conversations with when they're checking me out. And then the people behind me get frustrated, like, hurry up. I mean, we're in California, so everything's hurry, hurry, hurry. And then I become aware of it. I said, oh, okay. The people behind me are getting frustrated. I'll stop talking. Have a great day. So I think we need to understand our strengths also, because I say, Manuel, that our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses or lesser strengths. And so we need to understand how to regulate them sometimes, because if I'm overwooing the person across from me, then I'm taking other people's time that might be buying groceries, right? So I have to watch out for that. I don't know if it's the same for you.
uh, I'll notice next time I buy groceries. But we live in the time of AI, and I would like to connect the strengths-based discovery with AI, because AI it's also on its own discovery process. And I'm sure it didn't give an AI yet a strengths finder or a strengths-based discovery test. But how do you see AI, and how people, we have interns, we have volunteers in AKFI, I have students in Cornell. How should they look at AI to leverage on their strengths, because they come in, with all these talents and strengths to us?
Yeah. I think AI is an incredible tool, and now we're seeing it everywhere. when OpenAI first became available to the general public, there were millions of people that signed up, which was an incredible speed that happened. And that's because people see that these tools are, we're able to utilize them in a way that can benefit us. And so my suggestion is, and say this very publicly, especially if I am speaking at a university, because I still do a lot of that work. Now, I obviously I have my company Signature Careers, but I do still work with universities and colleges, and I will encourage students to utilize AI tools. And what I'm hearing back from students is that they're being told not to use them. And so for me, that's shocking. And it's not all universities, but I'm hearing this pattern over and over and over again. And I say, let's break the rules because AI is here. It's here to stay. It's evolving very quickly. And we must know how to utilize it for our own benefit and for our career. Because those people that are not utilizing it now are already being left behind. And so it's a very serious thing, right? And so as a career, um, coach and I don't want to call myself expert because I always feel like there's always something to learn, right? Ever learning person, growing person, is that we have to integrate it into our everyday life because it really is here to stay. And every day, and I don't know if you've noticed this, Manuel, but I'm seeing a new tool that has some kind of AI integration that's facilitating a
Absolutely.
process. Right.
Absolutely. Actually, full AI systems like DeepSeek. The other day, I read about the French one called the Chat, the cat.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they get better at performance. But you got me to think that I should actually feed my profile into AI and ask, to write my bio
Yeah.
based on the combination of strengths and the combination of course, career path and all other good stuff that gets into a CV or a bio. But I think will be an interesting exercise.
Yes, and I'm actually when I work with clients in particular, I do work with a lot of transitioning clients. I do encourage them to go into their LinkedIn profile, and what you do is you basically upload any information you want to share with OpenAI. Cautioning, it is OpenAI, and some of the other tools are open, and that's why they are free, right? So we want to be careful. I always encourage people to potentially purchase a some kind of a membership or sign on where you're paying for your own account and you're not openly sharing all your information. So that's another thing to look out for. It's a great tool, but we want to make sure that we're keeping our own personal information private too. So just being aware and educated on how to utilize that. But if you just get the text, for example, from LinkedIn, and you drop it into your account, whatever tool that you're using, and then you share, if you want to share your LinkedIn, you can literally tell it, create an about section for me for LinkedIn, utilizing these documents, these links, and integrate strengths. By the way, OpenAI does already have some data on Clifton strengths. It doesn't surprise me. Not to give it all away, right? Because I'm sure Gallup wants to keep that to themselves. But it does. So it will integrate your strengths if you tell it which ones they are and understand what you're talking about. And it's an amazing tool to just put it together very quickly.
Oh, it's actually very interesting, and taking the perspective of sustainability, which for a shorthand we define it as planet, people, and profits. And if we had strengths-based discovery, which belongs to stakeholders, to people, I think we can get stronger and better focused teams on anything, in this case, sustainability, because there is a higher demand in people coming to us with an internship from universities. people in the middle of the career change. And of course, our expertise is technical, it's business, it's marketing, but we are not career coaches. And it's actually interesting that uh, those people are coming to our organization to volunteer and to intern exactly to pick up skills. And I think we'll have to get a license for Clifton. And
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree that Clifton Strengths will not only impact career. I really, I fell in love with it because it impacts many areas of a person's life. It can impact your personal life, your own personal development, of course, your home life, your family life, partners, people that you live with, your community. It impacts workforce engagement and increases workforce engagement. And some latest reports from Gallup are saying we have some of the lowest engagement in the workplace. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that people are not aligned with their talents and strengths. They're not doing what they are passionate about, and how, they're not aligned with how their strengths can propel them forward. So if we say if you're not using the majority of your strengths, now Manuel, it's it's never going to be perfect, okay? Because we live in an imperfect life, imperfect world with a lot of things that kind of change and move and pivot, right? But if you can utilize,
absolutely.
yeah, if you can utilize the majority of your strengths, that's how much more engaged and happier you're going to be at work doing the things that you love to do. And it sounds simple, do the things you love to do, but so many people are not doing that, and they're not, aligned with their greater purpose in life. And so with sustainability, when you bring a team of people to work on a project or research, we want to make sure that they are aligned with their greatest strengths. And you want to be aware of your team's talents so that you can basically know where people need to be in which places so that you can move faster, quicker, happier together, right? We want to be happy at work. We spend so much time at work. We don't want to be miserable.
And continuing on this thread actually of strengths based and career coaching, uh, one of the challenges we find in sustainability is that people need now to be not multidisciplinary. That can be picked up arguably by getting multiple degrees, although it's a slow and I would say easy process. But also we talk about the need to be transdisciplinary. So in some way, the people which can promote, which can push forward sustainability in companies have to have probably half of the 34 skills, not only five.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
for instance, communications, it's a big skill that it's not common in the technical world. And I'm coming from the technical world, and people are not trained to communicate, and personality and their internal skills are to focus on their work, as you said. They do what they like to do, but
Mm-hmm.
in the context of a company, you can just do whatever you like to do. You have to do things sometimes you don't like to do, but you need the skills. So how do you manage this in this complex world, as you said, imperfect and complex?
Hmm. I think that's a great question because more and more we're being asked to have a lot of technical skills because of things like AI and the systems that we use now. And then also on the other hand, have what we call the soft skills, right? That's the communication. Now we talk also about EQ or emotional intelligence, which a lot of employers are looking for. I was recording this small video on TikTok how people are reading their memorandums of letters that they got laid off live on TikTok, and I said, please don't do that because employers are looking for emotional intelligence, right? So these are the soft skills that we have to now figure out how to bring together. But if we understand our greatest skills, right, and if we have analytical skills, or we're deliberate, uh, meaning we're able to look at systems and kind of slow things down to make sure that we're releasing it into the world. In this case, sustainability. We don't want to release something into the world if it's not ready, right? Those are amazing skills to have, but we also want to have the communication, the empathy, right? The ability to connect well with others. And so if you have an understanding of where they fall in the 34, one, you can recognize them and you can acknowledge what we call, again, your lesser skills. And then we can also find in teams who may complement you that's either opposite of what you might have in terms of your strengths that you can put together as a team, right? So I'll give you an example. I have activator and I love getting things going and moving. I believe we share activator too, don't we, Manuel?
But we don't share secrets.
I
I'm
love it.
joking. I'm totally joking.
So people who are activators, and I always say it looks different for everybody. Your activator might be like super activator, might be a little bit slower, but I do like to activate quickly, which means that I like to put things in action quickly, right? We like to move things along. So I had activator, and one of my colleagues who was, working with me on a project to launch a platform at one of the universities, um, she had deliberative. So that means she would slow things down, and it would really drive me crazy. And I'm like, why is she doing this, postponing my project? I started to take it a little personal. I couldn't understand. And then one day I was like, wait a minute, let me ask her if she's taken her Clifton Strength. And she had. And she shared with me that she was deliberative. And then every thought that I had about what was happening just fell apart. It just crumbled because I said, oh, I get it now. She's deliberative. She needs to slow things down and make sure everything's running perfectly before it's released onto this massive campus. And it needs to be working properly. But I have this pressure also. My boss is saying, when is it going to be released? When is it going to be released? And my activator's also doing the same thing. So then we have to pay attention to those things. But after that, we started having coffee together and lunch, and we were friendly. And I think we both understood each other much better. And so when you have a team that's being encouraged to work in multiple disciplinary areas, you want to understand each other's strengths so that you understand, one, how you work together and how you may not work together. Because here's the opposite kind of example. If we have two people who are futuristic, right? And I also have a futuristic strength, and you have the same idea of the future, right? But what if you have different ideas of the future? That could be a problem too, right?
So clearly, just listening or listing the strengths, it doesn't mean automatic, team building or ability to work together. People have cultures, people have biases. So I don't want to, think that we can reduce the whole humanity to
To the
a
34.
formula, regardless how powerful it is. And again, I like the tool and I like the. And I'll give you an example actually that we are facing. But before going there, you just mentioned activator and action, and our nonprofit is called Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute. So it starts with action.
Yeah. Good, friend. You have one of your
Actually.
strengths in there.
Uh, I came up with the name, so I was a little biased, but I couldn't see research being the only strength of an organization. It has to result in in an actionable plan. It's something that helps people, helps companies, helps the environment. But
Exactly.
going back to barriers and resistance, one of the most common quoted in sustainability, as much as in transformation, because sustainability is transformation, and in the case of digital transformation, for example, it's the same. Is we'd like to change, but the culture doesn't allow us, or the culture is not proper. So how do you see using the strengths-based discovery to actually as a tool to uh, model the culture? Culture is not something we can really formalize, even in a clear definition. There are tens of definitions. So, question: is there a bridge between strengths-based discovery and cultural uh, transformation, if you want? Because we'll move to AI, we'll move to sustainability, move to digital transformation. Everything is a transformation process. And some people, as you mentioned, maybe or statistics say that there are maybe 80% that don't like change.
Hmm. Hmm. I think in general, people, I mean, maybe this is a big assumption, but people like to keep things kind of going the same. We don't like change, and I think we discovered that during COVID, right? How quickly everybody had to pivot, like overnight, and so
Yeah.
that was a big challenge for people that didn't have the strength adaptability, right? Because that is a strength to be able to adapt quickly. But now we're having to be able to really look at that and say, okay, what does that mean for me, right? In terms of how do we pivot quickly? But also, we want to make sure that we're, as we're moving forward, that we're acknowledging that that is a way of life now, also, right? So that impacts culture. If you go work for someone where things are changing quickly and you're not good with adapting quickly, then I really want you to look at your strengths and say, okay, how can I utilize my strengths in these times of quick change? And I don't see that going away. And I'm sure you feel the same way, that this ability to pivot quickly, whether or not you're good at it, has to happen. So that's why it's important to understand your strengths, and then understand who's on your team, or who's in your company that can help you make and drive those change, because that change and that ability to pivot quickly will change the culture, and people will eventually, if I'm not good at adapting quickly, I will become more accustomed to it, and I will embrace it, and I will accept it. And once you accept it, you have now changed the culture. But here's one thing that happens, Manuel, is that sometimes I get approached and they say, we want our team to, our culture to change. Great. But the reality is, culture change only comes after, it's kind of like the iceberg analogy, right? Um,
Mhm.
you see the top and you know what you need to do, but at the bottom, and it's almost, I want to flip it around, the bottom is where the real work is done and needs to be done before you see the culture change at the very top. And it comes from leadership first, because sometimes leaders will come to me and say, let's change the culture, help me do that. Great. But I need the leadership to start with that process. Don't point me to your employees first, because that's not where it's going to start. It's starting from the top. And we're understanding our mission, our goals, our objectives first. We're understanding each other, how we works, what doesn't work, and then defining those goals very clearly. And then bringing on champions, right, to champion your mission, goal, and objectives. Because leadership alone cannot change that culture, right? We can start with strengths and understanding each other, but you will also need people to support for example, the pivots. And once that begins to happen and you have your champions across the board, then you really begin to work individually with your teams and individuals, And then the buy-in becomes greater and the adaptability increases. And then culture change happens. But culture change, there's a lot of work to be done before we can change the culture. It does not happen overnight. And it starts at the very top.
And actually, sustainability is a clear example of it. Excuse me, because this is a completely new element that was not there before in strategy and in culture for, let's say, maybe came last 10 years in some forward-looking companies and more recently in the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for highlighting the role of leadership. You brought me also to a sort of counter example where CEOs and executives are saying now you have to come to work on at the office 5 days a week or you're fired. And there is an element of inconsistency because they said forever we'll have work at home. Maybe I'm wrong when I'm saying Google, but I think it was one of the companies which says you have the liberty to work at home, and now you don't have the liberty to work at home. So these kind of things actually resulted in a change of culture and result in resistance when you try to, change it again. And maybe we can work a little bit more on the role of leadership, especially in the context of AI, in the context of innovation, in the context of sustainability, which I defined it at the beginning, be a combination of people, environment, and profit. So I'm sure that the executives look at the profitability of the company and they think, it'll be better if they bring the people to work. But they do it so suddenly, so forcefully that raises a cultural backlash.